We've got a lot of work to do, but I think that, he's ready for it. I'm ready for it. It's going to be exciting.
Get to evaluate Braden a little bit in the spring, but this is the first time you've gotten to kind of see Tanner Bailey do some stuff. What are your kind of impressions of these two freshmen?
Both athletically, both have different skill sets. Braden's going to end up being a 6'4", 200-pound kid that's, super athletic, can do things, extend plays, off schedule plays. I think Tanner's a guy that, he's going to be more of a pocket guy, but he's still athletic to hurt you and can still run some zone read game. Very accurate passer, very skilled passer. Got a nice leadership quality to him, and you can get on Tanner as hard as you want. He just kind of, in a good way, kind of not laughs it off, but it doesn't affect him. He puts his head back down and goes right back to work.
You mentioned the receivers and some of the weapons on offense. As a coordinator, how much of a luxury is that? And then also, how much kind of is a curse is that? Because it's like, hey, you got to make sure all these guys get the ball.
It's definitely a luxury. I think, again, if you lived through what we lived through last year, where you went into games just trying to figure out who you're going to get the ball, how you're going to get the ball to them, and I think to have the ability to have this many guys that can do things when they have the ball in their hands, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to allow us to be very, very creative offensively and put people in, again, places that they can be successful. I mean, you might be a receiver, but you also maybe, be a running back. And especially with Debo being a South Carolina guy, everybody thinks that they're the next Debo. Everybody's on board for that.
How do you toe that line between throwing maybe the kitchen sink at the offense and saying we can do these 15 things, so let's do them, and toe that line between that and kind of staying simple and putting guys in easy spots too?
It's a good question. It's amazing. I was looking at it this week, just the amount of offense that our guys know and understand. Even the freshmen that just got here, at the start of summer, just they're able to go out there and PRP. Spencer's able to call anything from play 1 to play 50, and they're able to go out there and execute it. Now, like you said, you can't do 50 of them. I get that. In the season, we want to try to be as simple as we can, but we also want to be able to use our personnel groupings. And anytime that you have the amount of tight ends, like we have 4 guys right now that can go out and play and do certain things, I think that you got to be ready to use your personnel and try to mess with people that way.
Marcus, I mentioned to Shane that this is the first time in 3 years that South Carolina is going to be returning an offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. How much easier does that make things for some of these players, because they've had to learn a new scheme for the last 3 years? Now this past spring they're able to obviously pick up with where things ended off last year, but have you noticed the difference?
I think it's huge for the receivers. It's huge for the O-line. I think for the O-line to not have to change all their calls every single year for 3 years. I think for them to have all the consistency with offense from last year through the spring and through the summer, they're going to show very good improvement. And I think the quarterback's not really going to affect because he just got here. So. But I think all groups, obviously, the more that we can all stay together and do the same stuff and talk the same language, will be a lot better.
Well, obviously, a handful of skill guys who weren't here in the spring or didn't practice in the spring. How do you feel like Stogg and I guess Rucker and Sampson, whoever else that's newish to campus? How do you feel like? I guess what's your feel for those guys?
I feel great about them. Stogner's got an unbelievable catch radius. I mean, he's a very good route runner, got great length, obviously. Very smart, works at it, it's up in the office all the time. I think he already has a great grasp of what we're doing in the passing game. We've got a really nice route tree for a guy like that we really didn't get to use a lot last year. And it stinks because Nick Muse would have been really good at it, but we had to use him in protection a lot just to protect some of those young quarterbacks. So I think we're going to get to see that aspect of Austin. I think Ruck's cool because he knows every single position. And he's like a savant. Like he can play anywhere, and he's got that size, so he can play outside, inside, move around, do certain things. I think Nate Atkins coming from an FCS, but he's a really good tight end. He's a guy that can block the C gap, block the B gap, and he has elite ball skills. He has a toughness. He's a coach's kid. He's very smart, and that's crucial because you're going to use all those tight ends in different situations and try to mess with people, from a personnel standpoint. So that group is exciting. Those new guys are exciting. I can't remember who else, if I missed anybody else. That's why you shouldn't name names whenever you're talking.
Are you sort of like, watch me now, because I've got a lot of pretty pieces to work with on the offense compared to last year. Like you've got a full deck to play with this year compared to what you were kind of hamstrung with last year.
I wouldn't say watch me now. I don't live in that world. I mean, that's part of like when you accept the responsibility of being an offensive coordinator in this league, like you're going to have a certain amount of people that think you're an idiot, and there's a certain amount of people that see what you're doing. So I have full confidence in what I know and what I do, and I've been through this many times before, like I've referenced, and I know the process that it takes. And very few times have we turned a program around or turned an offense around where we just came in and it was perfect day one. Like we had to go through some really tough things, and what that did was harden me, harden our coaches, harden our players, toughen up all of us, and allowed us through the next couple of years to have great success.
And what did you see from Rattler since he's come back to town, from what he might have worked on with his coach out in Arizona while he was away this summer?
Coach Gio and I have the same, very same, luckily for me, because it's not always like that, same philosophy in how we're throwing the football. And I think that Spencer's come back, he's tightened up his motion even more, his footwork is getting where we need it to be, very light on his feet, his base, and the foundation which we try to throw the ball. Gio and him have been working on. I think it's going to be really good. But I mean, you can tell he's happy. Which, there's something to be said about that. He's happy. He's happy to be at South Carolina. He's got a lot of energy. He's got a lot of confidence. He's ready to go.
And the competition.